Hello again, Ian Stokey with Mastermind Games, back with Monsterpocalypse and the Terrasaurs, doing Raptix and Brontox, both singular and plural. And as I have 2 packs worth of these, I'm just going to be doing one of each on camera. I'm going to start with Fire Orange 09006. I'm going for a volcano-inspired color scheme, and hoping to give the impression that the Terrasaurs might be partially composed of Earth itself. So, again, I'll only be doing one of each on camera. So, let's see here. I can go a little larger than I normally would on this, at least on this first one. So the Brontox, which were actually both of these are units not just from the original version of the game, but from the first expansion to the first set to the first edition of the game. And they still have their respective roles from that version. The Brontox being a support unit that can spawn more Terrasaurs when it's holding a power point. Or power zone. That's the word I'm looking for. Don't want to confuse power zone with a office program. And the Raptix is a dedicated anti-air melee unit. They've changed some of the rules on who can attack what in the new edition, but that's for the better. First edition flyers could not be attacked in melee, which was kind of odd because it looked like flying monsters could, but you know what, it doesn't matter anymore because this is second edition. And if you see one of the Raptix with a wonky foot, it's because I got one that was completely missing one of its feet, so I decided to try my hand at just sculpting a replacement. It was not my best, but not my worst. And you know what, it'll be fine. Oh, kind of painted myself into a corner in a very literal sense here. Okay, let that dry, move on in a bit. Okay, my camera's doing funny things again. So next, Chaotic Red is a Warpaints color. I'm going to just get the interior of the mouths on the Raptix. The Brontox have their mouths shut. Almost grabbed the wrong brush for it. I need to do this before getting the teeth for a very specific reason. So apply to the rest, let that dry, and hope my camera is playing nice next time. Okay, found a way to finagle my camera, or the lighting actually. So Shield Brown 09161 is going just on the Brontox. So underbellies are going to be a dark earthy brown. So it's carefully picking out the thick scales on the belly. Alright. This will be more obvious when I get to the monster I have coming up. Now the Raptix don't have these thick underbelly scales, so I'm not going to worry about forcing anything. So apply that to the other one and move on. Okay, last base coat. Uniform gray. going on teeth very carefully. So the other part of my color scheme is brown underbellies, but the stony looking back in between bright orange scales. That is too much paint, not enough water. Ah, crap. Well, at least it didn't break. This resin, it can be a little brittle. Not too bad, just a bit. And then, be a little tricky, but picking out the talons as well. And then getting it on a Brontox. This could even be. Alright, I'll start with the talons. And go along that thickly, heavily armored back. Getting the underside of the jaw, this whole creature is just pretty much a massive ball of armor. I don't think it has offensive ability. I have to double check the card, but it's a support unit. Its job isn't to fight. Its job is to hang in the back, or possibly at critical power zones and negative zones mid-board, and hold objectives, and spawn units in unexpected places. And I'm going to let that dry before moving on. Alright, time to shade. Stormy Gray 09088. Yeah. Alright, so thinning the paint with 1 part water to 1 part paint to make it into a wash. Now, the teeth and talons I'll have to do separately. I'll do this in 2 stages, so I'm just going to do those off camera, but this will go on any of the gray. Just go over the color to be affected, let it get in the recesses. Keeping the brush super wet. This will flow into the lowest parts of the model and make them darker. Alright, so I'll have to get the claws later. I'll just do that off camera, but I'll get a Raptix. Go a little quicker because there's less surface area to cover here. And that's going to have to dry completely before I move on. But applying the rest and get the claws and teeth off camera. Alright. Dry enough, I can move on. So Woodstain Brown 09160. Just going to go ahead and get the underbellies of both Brontox. And red brick 09001. And go inside the mouths all the Raptix. Do a couple here. Maybe one where I know for certain I'm on camera. And then, okay, get the rest off camera, and then once all this is dried up, I can get the orange. Alright, one more layer of shading, but before that I'm going to do some prep work on the bases for the Elite Raptix. I like to keep these in their protective little plastic until the last minute, just to keep them as nice as possible, especially when there's paint flying all over. So I'm taking a brush on primer, white, and this works just like paint, just like the paint does. And carefully fill in the stars. On the very first Monsterpocalypse models I did for 2nd edition, I had left these blank, but they didn't stand out too much, so I wanted a second thing outside of a variant paint scheme to make certain that my Elite units really stood out. I will be adding some color to this when I do the highlights. And this one's really biting me. There's a gap. And these stars are an actual indent on the base itself, so... Now the primer, that helps the paint stick. And the color you use for priming is important. If you use white, you'll have a brighter, more vivid colors will be easier. Black will give you a darker, grittier look. Gray will neutralize your paint and make it look a little more muted. And now while that dries, Phoenix Red 09005. This is going to get a little tricky, I think. So I'll just do one of each on camera. And I'm going to be thinning this out a fair amount. See if this works out in the physical world as the same way it worked out in my head. Keep the brush nice and wet, so start with the most awkward angle first. I think that'll work out reasonably well. I don't need to get the very bottom of the feet since those are going to be where the glue hits. I'm thinking I missed a bit of flash when I was cleaning the model though, so I'll have to be mindful of that moving forward. Alright, worked out reasonably well. Grabbing a Raptix. So what I'm going to do here is grip by the tail, then set him on its chin and just get the tips of the tails later. I don't consider it ideal to do the shading in 2 stages like that, but it's going to be necessary in this case. So, and actually, I think I'm just going to have to go one side and then the other. That's probably going to be what I have to do. So. Okay, so I'll plan on doing that. Alright, so I'll get the other side of it off camera later. But it's just going to have to go in 2 stages, so get the rest and then move on. Alright, next I'll finish up the bases. A little dot of Vampire Red, which I'll use again for some highlighting later. Just carefully fill in the stars that I just try a different approach. Okay, yeah, so I thin it out like a wash, and I'm just going to fill it in like this. And this will make them stand out more. And again, be a second thing to make it bluntly clear that these are the elite units. Reason being, some players get real nutso when it comes to the rules, as in they will actually exhibit unsportsmanlike behavior to try to win on a technicality. I've seen plenty of that before. Fortunately, not in any of my non-collectible games. I don't do collectible anymore. Okay, Leaf Grain 09011, and this, I'm gonna fill in the eyes. So, in first edition Monsterpocalypse, you had 2 figures for every monster, an alpha and a hyper. It's now represented by the dual-sided card, but each monster had multiple hyper forms. At least 2, some had 3. But most of the alpha hyper forms, every faction had were cast in a. Alright, let's start over. The ultra type hyper forms for every monster were almost always, with the exception of the metamorphs, which probably won't appear in this edition, at least not the way they did in the first, were cast in translucent plastic with the specific color tied to the faction. So Terrasaurs were in a dark green, so a little homage to that is dark green eyes. I'm just going to fill them all out right here, right now. Then once these eyes completely dry, I can start highlighting. Carefully dotting in. The Raptix especially have tiny little eyes. And actually the dark green color stands out nicely on the orange. This is the one here where I was missing the foot completely and had to, well, decided to just try sculpting one myself, so it's kind of funky. It's not my best work, but not my worst. Just dabbing it in there. Another one had its foot broken off, but I was able to glue that back on easily enough, but it might not be at quite the right angle. Okay. Let that dry, then I can highlight and wrap her up. Oh boy, frame drop. Alright. Now to highlight. Vampire Red again. And switching over to a dry brushing technique. No water, straight paint only. And a ragged feathered brush, kind of like this. Rub most of the paint out on the paper towel. Oh boy, hiccups. And lightly dust the area to be affected, in this case, the mouth and tongue. Okay. I'm going to apply that to the rest and come back in a second. Alright, next, Marigold Yellow 09007. I'm not worrying about the bottom of the feet so much since those are going to be glued down by the time I'm done. I'll do one of each type of model on camera and get the rest off. You see that's really catching on those nodes on the flanks there on the, really making that part pop out. Now a Raptix. It's really popping nicely with this color scheme. At one point I thought about doing a black highlight to make the nodes darker, but glad I changed my mind on that at the last minute. It's working much better. Alright. Apply to the rest and move on. Apply the rest and move on. Alright. Driftwood Brown 09162. And this is just going on the underbellies of the Brontox. And enough of it will be visible from the sides to make it worth doing this. So normally I just do things that are readily visible. So apply the other, move on in a second. Oh boy, that was boring. Alright, last highlight. Misty Gray 09090. And I'll just do this again on one of each model. This is the big one though. Just quick brush on the talons. Might have a bit too much paint on this one, but you know what? It makes this one look, will make this one look a little more unique, and that's fine by me. Going against those raised edges on that carapace. And that ain't bad. Now picking out a Raptix. and the stony plates on the back. And that's not bad at all. Apply to the rest, and there's one last step to do. Okay, I almost forgot. I need to do a slight variant to pick out 2 elites. So I'm going to think, leaf green 09011. Do an additional highlight on the backs of 2 of these Raptix. Oops. Alright, just need to find a brush that's dry enough. That'll do. And again, this is also an homage to the original game, where elites had a variant color to them. Either an additional color somewhere, or a swapped color. So and this ain't bad. And it's also another thing that will help differentiate the elites from the grunts outside the stars in the base. So I want this to dry completely before I glue them on, which I will also show on camera, but there's an elite and there's a grunt. So, back in a moment. Alright, final step. And that's gluing them on. So, one of the elites there, a thick cyanoacrylate superglue, which is almost empty, but fortunately I have a spare bottle. So, tiny dot on the feet. Do one of each on camera here. I'm going to position over the base the way I want them. Oh boy, there's one of the elite bases, so I'll just hold that down. Oh, for about a 10 count. That might need a little longer, but that's the gist of it. So that's somewhere out of the way. Brontox. I got the other non-elite bases peeled out of their protective wrapping while I was waiting on paint to finish drying. And a tiny dot will be plenty on this stuff, but be very careful because this will glue your hands shut. So just bear that in mind. The best glues have a certain risk factor to it. So the Brontox stays on more easily because it's got more solid contact points, and yeah, it's played out like that. And now different Raptix. Just show the grunt. I think I just spoke in the most awkward way possible there. And just holding that down. See, never mind. Now, this is going to take a while, so just patience is key. Sometimes you're going to be standing still for a while while you wait on glue to cure, or at least set enough to be able to move on anyway. I think that's got it enough that I can wrap up, so Grunt Raptix, Elite Raptix, and Brontox. So that is it. Selection of Terrasaurs units. Got one of their monsters up next. Until then, I am Ian Stuckey with Mastermind Games, signing out.